Hi, I'm Joni Patry, and welcome to my YouTube channel. Well, today I want to talk about some serious business because April is a very difficult month. But I want to talk about particular things and particular dates that you're going to want to be informed about, because it is serious that things that could be happening this month are extremely dangerous. So the first thing I want to talk about is April 2nd to the 4th. I am seeing some very treacherous things come up in the transits for the world. So what I'm looking at, let me just put up this chart for April 4th in particular, and then we'll talk about where everything's going. April 4th, Saturn will be 0 degrees of Pisces. And as it is 0 degrees of Pisces, it has just entered into the sign the 29th of March. Now, the reason why I'm paying attention to 0 degrees is when you look to where Uranus is in this chart, it is also at 0 degrees. So Saturn is fully aspecting Uranus. In Vedic sidereal astrology, which I do, which are the true placements of where the planets are astronomically, we have Saturn's full 100% in power aspect, its third aspect, which is 60-degree orb, which is the sextile in Western astrology. But talking about this full 100% in power aspect, Saturn's aspect to Uranus is sudden, unexpected catastrophes and endings. Something big is due to happen with this aspect. Now, another thing I can't help but notice in this chart is where Mars is. Mars sits at 0 degrees as well, but in Cancer. Now, Mars is not happy in Cancer. It's its debilitation sign. But you got to figure that this 0 degree marking is significant, especially since Saturn is trining it. And with Saturn casting a trine to Mars, this trinal aspect is treacherous. Why? Because it connects these two planets. It's like a conjunction. So Saturn is endings and obstacles and problems, and Mars is violence and danger. And Mars can definitely be outbreaks and war. And another thing that I'm going to fill you in with is that Mars is going to move up and oppose Pluto this month as well. I'll give you some dates with that. So we are looking at major problems and trouble. Now, I have been writing about this for a long time. I've been putting this also in my Patreon class and with my students. So I just want to remind everyone that you can be getting my insights, my predictions free if you sign up for my free newsletter. Go to galacticcenter.org, sign up right now, and you will be informed of these dates, this timing, and everything that I'm predicting during these critical times. Go to galacticcenter.org. While you're there, don't forget, check out my Patreon. Become part of our spiritual community. You do not have to know astrology to be part of this spiritual group. And you can find that on my website. Another thing is the Galactic Planner. You're going to want to know how these transits are affecting you personally. So many people say, well, what am I supposed to do if I know all this is happening? I always say, look at your personal chart, because it will tell you if you're being personally affected instead of globally. And that is my Galactic Planner. Check it out, get it. It is a great way for you to have your personal chart done at a fraction of the price. Go to galacticplanner.com. So, continuing on with this serious business, I want you to know that this day, and you know, I do know that this is like right after the tariffs are being imposed on April 2nd. So this particular day marks a day of radical shifts and changes. The thing that I find, well, first I'm going to go through a few more things that are going to be happening. Then I'm going to show you some people's charts that I know are going to be heavily affected by this. So the next day I want you to think about is going to be around April 11th. April 11th to April 12th, around this time. Mars, when it progresses or transits to 3 degrees of Cancer, you see in this chart it's at 2 degrees of Cancer. And when it moves up to 3 degrees, all at the same time, Mercury will be 3 degrees and Rahu will be 3 degrees. And with that, Rahu is casting a trinal aspect to Mars, which is like a conjunction. Mars is violence and war and attacks, and Rahu magnifies it all the more. Now, another date I want to just mention to you will be somewhere around April 26th, because April 26th, Mars will be opposed Pluto, and Pluto is devastation. Pluto can be atomic energy. Pluto is Mars on steroids. And you have both those planets opposing each other. Now, I know this happens actually every 2 years, except for this time we have so many other transiting events that I think this one's more critical than any of the others. So this takes place around April 26th. But backing it up to April 11th, when Mars is 3 degrees, I'm actually thinking more around April 10th through the 12th, with the 11th being the midpoint. The moon will be conjunct K2 as well. So this is critical. So once again, I'm looking at April 2nd through the 4th, then I'm looking at April 10th through the 12th, and then I'm looking at where everything is really breaking out by April 26th. So these are all critical days. Now, I want to put up some of the political people in this world, well, mainly in the United States, that are going to be affected heavily by this. So first of all, before I go there, let me put up the chart for the United States that I use. Because for the United States, if you look at this chart, where Mercury sits in the 8th house of corruption, endings, death, major transformational changes, and secrets. Mercury sits at 3 degrees of Cancer. Remember, this is where transiting Mars will be, and Rahu will be aspecting it. So this means something critical is happening in the United States. It is a very dangerous time, I've got to tell you. And then notice Mars. Mars sits at 0 degrees of Gemini. Therefore, Saturn at 0 degrees of Pisces is exactly squaring Mars in this chart. And in this 7th house of a country's chart, it represents opponents and people that could attack. So this is in the United States chart. Now, the next chart that, of course, I've got to put up is Donald Trump's chart. President Trump, looking at his chart, notice where his natal Saturn sits. 0 degrees of Cancer. This means that transiting Mars will be exactly on his natal Saturn in the 12th house that could deal with losses. And something treacherous could happen. He must be extra careful during this entire month, I must say, because every time, even his Venus sits at 2 degrees where Mars will cross over when it is almost 3 degrees. And if you will notice, of course, transiting Saturn on that day will be at 0 degrees. I'm talking about the 2nd through the 4th, will be around 0 degrees. And actually, it's going to be around 0 degrees most of the month of April. So the whole month is treacherous. But as Saturn sits at 0 degrees, 0 to 1 degree, it is aspecting by trinal aspect, which connects the planets of transiting Saturn to his natal Saturn in his 12th house of losses. But if you will notice his midhaven, his MC, that midhaven sits at 1 degree of Taurus. Why is that significant? Transiting Uranus is there on his midhaven. And let me just say, July 13th, Uranus was there before. And this is very much involved with a dangerous fixed star. The most demonic star, they say, in the heavens is Algol, which is around 1-2 degrees of Taurus. And as transiting Uranus is going to be on his MC, something similar could happen. And with that, transiting Saturn is, as I said before, fully aspecting Uranus. So we have a Saturn-Uranus aspect to his MC, his midhaven, which is his social standing, which is him in front of the public. This was the degree where Uranus and Mars conjuncted exactly on July 13th. Now we have Saturn and Uranus aspecting that midhaven. And this is even heavier. And you know what's interesting, and I showed you this book before, the book by Joan Quigley, who was Reagan's astrologer, actually said the planetary picture of assassination has to do with Uranus and Saturn. So this is a dangerous time. Okay, so this is what's been bothering me for a while, and I felt I needed to put a video out concerning this. Now, it may not even be this, but one thing for sure is that this all indicates that President Trump is having a difficult month. Okay, this is a difficult month. Now, whenever I see things like this, I don't just chalk it up to one chart. I do the research, and I pulled up another chart that I wanted you to take note of, and it happens to be Kennedy. If you will look at Kennedy's chart, who is running the health and what's going on in our country, notice in his chart where his natal K2 is. His K2 sits at 0 degrees of Cancer. And that's important because, of course, transiting Mars is going to be there. That is where Trump's Saturn is. So his K2 sits where Trump's Saturn is, but transiting Mars, the planet of violence and attacks, is going to be on his K2 in the 12th. So he's not happy. He's not having a good time either. So then I thought, let us put up some of Trump's children to see if there could be similar things going on. And actually, you never find the exact things, but you see a lot of similarities going on. And one of the charts that bothered me the most is his daughter, Ivanka Trump. So putting up her chart, as you can see, we don't have her birth time though, let me remind everyone. But we know where her planets are because we have her birthday. And if you will look where her Rahu and Ketu are, Rahu sits there at 2 degrees of Cancer. Transiting Mars will be right there when it is from 0 degrees to 3 degrees of Cancer. And that is a difficult aspect, Mars Rahu. And furthermore, her Jupiter sits at 0 degrees of Libra. Transiting Mars at 0 degrees of Cancer will be squaring her Jupiter. And notice her Venus, 0 degrees of Sagittarius. Mars will be in a 6-8 relationship when it's 0 degrees of Cancer, causing a quincunx to her Venus at 0 degrees of Sagittarius. Now, another one that I found to have these exact degrees, well, degrees that others had the eclipse degrees activated. But when I looked at more of the children with 0 degrees, I looked at Tiffany Trump, his daughter, and if you'll notice looking at her chart, Saturn sits at 0 degrees of Aquarius. This means that Mars is transiting Mars at 0 degrees of Cancer, will be aspecting her Saturn by an 8-6 relationship, which is a quincunx, one of the worst aspects you can have. So this Mars-Saturn, plus notice her Jupiter at 0 degrees of Libra. This is a treacherous aspect, and it's a square to her Jupiter. And I can't even help but notice her moon, we actually have her birth time. Her moon sits at 1 degree of Virgo. Saturn's going to be aspecting it by opposition. So it's a very emotional, upsetting time for her. And Pluto even sits at 0 degrees of Scorpio. So these are some of the charts. Now, I could go through all of the other children, and let me just say, they all have something significant happening as well. Particularly, well, let's just do one more, Eric Trump. Putting up Eric Trump's chart, transiting Mars, when it's around 3 degrees of Cancer, it will be squaring his natal Mars at 4 degrees. And his Jupiter sitting at 3 degrees of Sagittarius, Mars will be in a quincunx to his natal Jupiter, as well as Mars will begin to aspect his natal moon by a quincunx aspect, which is the worst aspect in 8-6. I'm just throwing out all this astrology and names. I just want you to know, even Baron Trump has something going on. Let me pull up Baron's chart and show you what I'm seeing. And I'll just tell you, with Baron's, he has his sun at 5 degrees of Pisces during this entire time. Neptune will be 5 degrees of Pisces. Yes, it's not the Mars, but it's something else. And Neptune means there's something you can't see coming. It means something you don't see. So there is something that's coming that we can't see that is very detrimental and problematic. And throughout this coming year, Neptune and Saturn will be hovering around 5 to 7 degrees of Pisces. So this is tough. I can't believe so many things I'm seeing. And even Donald Jr., he didn't have any of the exact things that everyone else had with the Pisces. But I'll just tell you offhand what he did have. He has the eclipse that is hitting his chart exactly, this solar eclipse that we just had. Let me see. And yes, Donald Trump Jr., his Rahu K2 sits at 16 degrees of Pisces, and Rahu sits at 16 degrees of Virgo, and the solar eclipse that we had March 29th occurred on March 29th at 15 degrees of Pisces. And if you'll note, his sun sits at 16 degrees of Sagittarius. So this eclipse, the sun sits at the fulcrum, the midpoint of the eclipse. I mean, I could go on and on. This is a critical month, and I use astrology as my tool to give me guidance. And all I want to say is we have to be extra careful. That's what we do astrology for, to help avert and prevent things. Not to sit there and white knuckle it till something happens. Astrology is a tool for self-betterment and to help give us guidance. As you guys well know, the reason why I got into astrology in the very beginning was I was around when President Kennedy was assassinated, and Gene Dixon came on the television the night before he came to Dallas and begged him not to go based on his astrology. And let me tell you, the world could be different if he listened. And that, seeing Gene Dixon on the black and white TV is what got me into astrology, because I am a firm believer that things can be averted with this divine spiritual science. It is a science, and we can help people avert problems with it. So that's why I'm putting this video out, to help avert problems, to use astrology as a tool for self-betterment and to avoid problems. So with that, I think I'll close. If you would like more information about me, you can always go to my website, which is galacticcenter.org. And remember to sign up for my free newsletter and my Patreon page. Become a member. And if you want to study with me, become my student, go to my university website, which is universityofvedicastrology.com. Thank you.